Billionaire's daughter mocks the blind musician. The light in the grand hall was so dazzling it seemed to swallow every shadow. Crystal chandeliers dangled from the high ceiling, scattering into thousands of glittering shards like luxury stars imprisoned in golden cages. Laughter echoed, crystal glasses clinked, and a soft jazz band played in the distance, weaving a perfect portrait of extravagance. The air was thick with expensive perfume, vintage wine, and counterfeit pride. In the corner of the room, contrasting starkly with the tuxedos and glittering gowns, sat a thin man with tousled hair before a gleaming black grand piano. His eyes were shut, not the closed eyes of focus, but of finality. He was blind. His fingers hovered gently over the keys, exploring as if listening to the piano's breath, like this instrument was the only set of eyes he had left to see the world. But before a single note could sound, a young woman's voice sliced through the air, cold and sharp as a blade skimming silk. A blind man pretending to be an artist. Pathetic. The room fell instantly silent. All eyes turned toward the voice. Descending the red-carpeted spiral staircase was Charlotte Sterling, the only daughter of the trillion-dollar Sterling Empire, like a diva in full command. Her deep crimson gown clung to her figure, each fold catching the light, making her seem like a haughty flame daring the entire room. Charlotte smirked, her eyes sparkling with mockery. She raised her champagne glass and strutted toward the piano. Every click of her heels on the marble floor, clack, 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 echoed like a gavel sealing someone's fate. The blind musician Ethan sat still, slightly hunched. He didn't respond. His silence only fueled the fire dancing in Charlotte's eyes. "You think you deserve to perform here?" she sneered, tilting her head. "This is a charity gala, not a homeless shelter." A few young guests near her chuckled cruelly. They looked at Ethan like he was some pitiful, misplaced joke. The rest of the hall remained stiff with unease. Everyone knew something was wrong, but no one wanted to be involved. Blood rushed to Ethan's cheeks, but his closed eyes stayed calm. His hands trembled slightly over the keys. The loudest thing he could hear wasn't the music, but the pounding of his own heart. He inhaled the rich scent of wine, the overpowering Chanel No. 5 on Charlotte, the smell of power and contempt. Charlotte set her glass down on the piano with a sharp clink. She leaned in close, just loud enough for the surrounding crowd to hear. "Maybe you should play in the subway, where beggars belong." A curse disguised as a whisper, a slap without a hand. If there had been cameras, they'd zoom in now. Ethan's face clenched in silent restraint, his hand gripping the bench till his knuckles turned white. And Charlotte standing tall, her crimson dress slashing through the dark like a wound. In that moment, the contrast was stark. Her, powerful, wealthy, a household name in a world of luxury. Him, poor, blind, alone, a man ridiculed in the spotlight. Whispers spread through the crowd. Some shook their heads, others stifled giggles. No one stepped in, no one objected. The chandeliers still sparkled above, but their light was cold, exposing injustice in its rawest form. A wrong note slipped out as Ethan's finger stumbled on a key. It rang like the piano's sigh, then vanished into silence. He lifted his face, sightless eyes turned to nowhere. But his voice, hoarse and low, cut through the quiet, steady and sharp. Even in darkness, music still sees the truth. The entire hall froze. One sentence, one blade of truth slicing straight through her arrogance. The chandelier light danced on the piano keys like tiny crystal tears that hadn't fallen yet. The camera, if there was one, would pan slowly to Ethan's hand resting on the keys, a silent promise that the music was coming. And it wouldn't just be notes. It would be a buried truth, finally heard. Crystal light cascaded like a waterfall, flooding the grand hall of the Sterling Crown Hotel, host to one of the city's most lavish charity galas. Flickering LED candles glowed softly along satin-draped tables. Imported orchids released a subtle fragrance, blending with the warmth of aged wine. The rhythmic click of stiletto heels on marble intertwined with bursts of laughter and whispered boasts of yacht stocks and winter getaways in the Swiss Alps. In this world, everything was curated to display perfection, from the crystal-clear wine glasses and shimmering red pours to the golden-framed artworks casting gentle reflections on velvet-covered walls. Nothing was out of place. Everything screamed, "We are wealthy. We are powerful." Tucked into a modest corner stood a gleaming Steinway grand piano, more ornament than instrument. On the simple wooden bench sat Ethan, upright hands resting gently on the keys. His face was gaunt. His eyes were shut, not in concentration, but in fate. The clouded pupils told the truth he could no longer choose to see. Light spilled over his hands, long fingers with visible knuckles, and the faint callus on his pinky worn from countless nights at the piano. He hadn't practiced for crowds like this. He played because music was how he survived. The scent of polished wood mingled with luxury perfumes, creating a bitter contrast, a silent note where wealth and poverty collided. Ethan didn't wear a tailored tuxedo. His shirt was faded, though neatly ironed, its frayed cuffs giving it away. A dark, inexpensive blazer clung to him like thin armor in a sea of designer labels and fur. His leather shoes were worn slightly uneven at the soles, but polished to a mirror shine. It was his last bit of pride to carry himself with dignity, even when the world looked at him with pity or disdain. The sounds of the gala were distant, like waves of noise breaking on the shores of his solitude. He heard spoons against glass credit cards sliding through donation machines and the soft murmurs of people who'd never once worried about a power bill. To Ethan, music was his vision, his only light in the dark. But here, in a place that should have respected art, he had been reduced to background noise, a decorative prop to flatter the rich. Not far away, cameras flashed and compliments floated like confetti around Charlotte Sterling. The only daughter of the Sterling Empire wore a red Swarovski-studded gown that shimmered like fire. Every step she took was a performance, and she knew it. Reporters tracked her every move. She held her champagne glass lazily, lips curled in a half-smile. Born into silk sheets and marble pools, Charlotte grew up in mansions lined with real Van Goghs. To her, the world was divided into two, those who belonged in her golden circle and those who didn't. Ethan, a blind pianist at her family's gala, clearly didn't. She stopped just close enough to study his face. His clouded eyes made her chuckle under her breath. In her mind, this man wasn't an artist. He was a symbol, her father's version of charity. A blind man on stage to make the Sterling family look noble. A decoration in a charity tableau. A nearby guest leaned in, whispering to Charlotte, "Is the blind guy really a musician, or just for show?" Charlotte smirked, eyes glittering with contempt. Who knows? Probably just hired to plunk out a few notes. Soft laughter rippled through the group. To Ethan, every giggle landed like a needle to the pride he'd fought so hard to protect. He said nothing, but his fingers trembled, his shoulders tensed. He thought of his run-down apartment, the leaky ceiling during monsoon season. He remembered the nights he practiced in the dark, surrounded by mold and silence, his music, the only thing keeping him from falling apart. Now here he was under glittering lights in a hall built for gods, and he had never felt more alone. In an imagined cinematic shot, the camera pans from Ethan's worn shoes up to Charlotte's radiant camera-lit face. Two worlds in a single frame. Darkness, blindness, poverty, resilience. Light, wealth, power, arrogance. Whispers echoed like static. Laughter pierced like a knife. And somewhere beneath it all, the steady thump of Ethan's heart. Every sense stretched taut, painting a portrait of injustice so sharp it took the air from the room. Charlotte raised her glass gaze, fixed on him, voice clear enough to reach every corner. Let's hope he doesn't ruin the evening. More eyes turned toward Ethan. A few nodded in agreement. Others looked away. But the silence, that crushing silence, was the loudest of all. It declared without words, he doesn't belong here. Ethan inhaled. The scent of wine, of overpowering perfume, of cold laughter, all of it swirled in his lungs. The room spun, waiting for him to fail, to entertain, to fade. The camera zooms in his hand, trembling above the keys. One wrong note echoes a solitary sound floating in the hush. Laughter followed. Ethan clenched his eyes tighter, whispered to himself. Just one melody, just one truth heard. The whisper was small, almost lost to the air, but it was the cut that closed the scene. The audience would know the tension had peaked. Injustice had found its spotlight, and the breaking point was only moments away. The spotlight of crystal light poured down like a waterfall, flooding the grand hall of the Sterling Crown Hotel, a venue for one of the city's most opulent charity galas. LED candles flickered along satin-draped tables. Imported orchids exuded their delicate scent, mingling with the warmth of aged wine. Stiletto heels clicked rhythmically on marble floors, intertwining with laughter and hushed boasts of yachts, stock portfolios, and winter escapes in the Swiss Alps. Every detail screamed perfection, from the crystal-clear wine glasses and deep red pours to the golden-framed art gleaming against velvet walls. Nothing here whispered modesty. Everything declared, "We are rich. We are powerful." In a humble corner sat a polished Steinway grand piano, less an instrument than a stage prop. Ethan perched on the plain wooden bench, back straight as a board, hands lightly resting on the keys. His face was gaunt, eyes sealed not out of concentration, but fate. The clouded pupils bore silent testimony he was blind. A cold white beam of light traced across the piano's surface. Charlotte stood nearby, a crimson slash through the radiance. Ethan initiated a gentle chord. It bloomed softly, then was swallowed by laughter erupting from the VIP tables. Marco, the stage manager, wearing headphones, leaned in, voice low and sharp as a blade. "Just background music. Don't attract attention. Got it." Ethan nodded. His left hand traced familiar keys while the right tried to keep time. But the music wasn't rising. It was being absorbed into thick carpet chatter, the clink of glasses, and the idle boasts about Maldives vacations. A young guy at the table jeered, brandishing an oversized watch. "What song's this? Happy something?" Laughter erupted again. A woman snapped her fingers. "Volume, turn it up." She laughed. "Oh, right, he wouldn't know how." Another spoon clinked, clattering against a glass. Ethan swallowed dryly, continuing to play. The champagne's chill scent sliced through him. Charlotte glided over. Clack, clack, went her heels. "Just set the mood," she said loud enough for all to hear. "Don't steal the show." "Yes, Ms. Sterling," Marco replied, turning to the controls. A click, the piano mic lowered. Ethan's notes thinned, strangled beneath invisible force. He felt the room's buzz, growing sales pitches, small talk, everything but music. His hand remained on the keys' vibrations, humming like his trapped heartbeat. A glass toppled, champagne spread across the piano's ebony finish like a stain. "Oops, sorry," a guest mused, voice light as an unfelt breeze. Spilled wine glittered among the keys. Ethan recoiled. Laughter followed. "Ha-ha, slip like him, huh?" Lena, the young waitress in a white apron, slid in and pressed a napkin into Ethan's hand. "Here," she murmured. "Are you okay?" "Okay," he replied, voice dry as gravel. "Background music." "Remember," Charlotte reminded as she turned live on her phone. What a beautiful gala, and here she angled her camera on Ethan, our street artist for the evening. Emoji laughter flooded the screen. A guy thrust his phone close, flash blasting into Ethan's eyelids. Smile. He remained still. The flash seared across his lids, a dismissive click attitude. He kept playing. Notes trembled almost thread-thin. Coins clinked, dropping into the piano's strings. Tip for the artist. Fit the vibe. The guy taunted. "More coins, a few more." "Stop!" A woman muttered softly, guiding her stunned friend away. Charlotte sipped her drink, leaning closer to the lens. "We always support less fortunate artists." A middle-aged man, tie loosened, whispered to Charlotte. "Are you sure inviting him was a good idea?" "Your father." "My father loves the humanitarian image," Charlotte replied, smile sharp as a silk-wrapped blade. "Drama only sells press." Ethan heard drama. His nerves stretched tight like snapped strings. Marco returned, voice suppressed. "Play something livelier, guests are snoozing." Ethan shifted into a light swing rhythm, but the mic stayed soft. The $80,000 instrument sat shiny, unused. Feet padded by carpet swallowed his sound. Charlotte placed a black velvet music box atop the piano. "Let's see smaller device, better musician." The lid clicked. A tiny melody chimed thin as spider silk. Guests cooed. Charlotte quipped, See perfect tune, no need to see. Ethan stopped. The fragile melody touched something deep. A ghost of antiseptic corridors, raindrops on tin roofs. A lullaby whispered in a child's ear. His knee clenched, fingers went numb. Lena inhaled at his change in color, but was called away table 3. "Keep going," Marco said. "We're on." Ethan returned to the keys, summoning a new motif, low, dense, like steps echoing through a hospital corridor. But the guest DJ's bass surged through speakers, pulverizing the piano into dust. "Come on," the DJ shouted. "Next up, auction." Charlotte raised her hand like an MC. "Before that, let's play a small challenge." Her gaze slipped to Ethan. "If he nails the song I named Sterling Family, we'll donate $50,000. A thrill ran through the room. Cameras and phones rose. Yes, so fair, exciting. Fair, Ethan thought. He sweated. He needed money, but not as a spectacle. "What's the song?" someone asked. Charlotte's smile was a rain simple. "Any hit I name. No mistakes." And she raised her glass. He must smile. Nice for the audience. Laughter erupted. Lena passed by, whispering, "This is absurd," eyes full of concern. "Go," Charlotte declared. "Claire de Lune." Applause cracked. Ethan exhaled. Claire de Lune, Debussy home. His fingers floated. The mic remained distant, but nearby listeners quieted. They heard moonlight on water. They almost forgot to breathe. Charlotte frowned. Despacito laughter. Ethan adapted. He merged his memory of street radio with classical phrasing. Some younger guests began subtly swaying. A girl whispered, "Wow, that's good." Oh. Charlotte watched hearts pop on her live stream. She pivoted. "Okay then. Without You Mariah version. Original key. Perfume wafted. Now." Marco signaled the DJ to raise the backing track. Ethan counted internally modulated to a safe key. His piano tone wrestled with the tuned bass. Cheers and clinks collided at his ear, but he kept playing. A man nodded, chuckling. "A bit of everything, huh?" Charlotte leaned in with a barb. "Seems like you remember a lot even without seeing." "Play on," Marco whispered into the headset. Bruno, the guard, loomed behind Ethan, an immovable shadow. Just in case. A balloon-sucking kid ran by shouting, "Look, a blind guy!" The mother yanked him away, glancing to the cameras and shooting Ethan a not-quite-sympathetic look. A drunken guy snuck in. You see that he taunted, then laughed. "Just kidding." He tossed a $10 bill inside the piano. "Keep it. I don't take tips." Marco scowled, not for Ethan, but for the optics. Next song, Charlotte announced as though this was her favorite toy. "River Flows in You." Guests gasped. Ethan delivered soft and exact. His lips didn't smile, but his closed eyes bloomed inward. "You must smile," Charlotte repeated. "Camera needs emotions." Ethan paused. Breath shook. "Music is emotion," he murmured, "not performance." She retorted, contempt dripping, "Oh, delicate artist." She turned to the guests. "See? Give someone a chance and they get snotty." Some muttered agreement. "That cane is in the way," a woman commented. Bruno moved at paper cane scraped under the piano. Ethan flinched, hands twitching. Bruno smiled faintly. "Quiet." Lena placed a glass of water by the keys. "Drink. Don't give up." Her 2 words draped over him like linen against tremors. He nodded. Final round, Charlotte lifted the music box like a trophy. "This one. Hit it and I'll give a personal $100K. If not, sorry, show must go on." "Fair?" asked a guest. "Very fair," Charlotte replied, never breaking eye contact. "Everyone knows this tune." She winded the box. Its tiny melody dripped onto marble like glass raindrops. No one registered what it was, but Charlotte smiled privately. Ethan sat still. His temple throbbed. He heard the first note, second. Then a memory slide broken, personal, familiar lullaby, not popular song. Antiseptic scent, rain, damp wool, a mother's hum in a corridor. That melody. Huh. Charlotte raised a brow, amusement fading. Marco watched, but audio levels stayed flat. "Play it," DJ urged. "Wait!" A deep, older voice boomed from the entrance. Heads snapped. "Mr. Sterling," someone murmured. Charlotte faltered, but her mask snapped back. She gestured, voice smooth. Listen, my own interpretation. Ethan played on. Most still didn't catch it. Some reached for drinks. But certain gazes shifted unwarned. The old voice persisted from the back. Let him play. The mansion doors closed softly. Attention flowed like a current redirected. Ethan still saw nothing, but he felt. The weight on his chest fluffed away. He traced that delicate orphaned motif, the one only he knew, gently like acoustic breathing in an overlit room. No time, Marco murmured, but his fingers hovered away from the fade. Charlotte offered a thin smile. Of course, but she was cut off by his breath, quiet, sharp, life-claiming. Ethan tipped his chin upward, like a man finding sunrise through tight-lashed eyes. One note fell. It struck the room like a pebble in still water. Ripples. First, Lena. Second, the old woman. Third, Marco. Fourth, many who don't know why their spines tingled. Charlotte pressed her lips thin. She lowered her live stream angle, tilting. Enough stayed in frame to catch her tight smile. Very touching, she murmured, voice polished. Ethan stopped. He turned toward where Charlotte stood, though he could not see. Voice wind-torn raw. This isn't from the gala. Oh, she arched an eyebrow. It's from whom? Ethan silent. Veins pulse vivid on his throat. The music box's ticking ended the moment its lid closed. The crowd, those who laughed, who tossed coins, fell silent. Not apathy this time. This was a stillness brimmed with something uncertainty, reflection, something fragile on the verge of breaking. Marco glanced at the doorway where a tall, silver-haired man entered slowly. For the first time, the stage manager felt a chill down his spine. Bruno shifted ever so slightly, letting a sliver of light fall back on Ethan's hands. Charlotte realized the attention had drifted. Her smile froze, paint-chipped cold. She whispered, "Are we done? Shall we move on?" Ethan placed his hands on the keys. No one could stop it. And then a cord exploded open wide as an unlocked window. The cord Ethan unleashed sounded like a window thrown open, and the gilded gala hall, once a serene aquarium of gold light, staggered. The clinking of spoons, the hush of footsteps, even the chill of the air conditioning, their rhythms, all halted. The crystal ceiling trembled, scattering tiny shards of light across the black and white keys. A deep, gravelly voice, weathered by age and too many speeches, cut through the silence with a simple command, close and powerful. Hold all acts, let him play. All heads pivoted. A silver-haired man walked slowly down the aisle, and the crowd parted as if water rolling aside under a boat's prow. Haloed in newly angled lighting, he approached. It was Alexander Sterling, the name emblazoned on the building, Charlotte's father. Charlotte paused momentarily, unmasked, but habit kicked back in her rehearsed smile, snapped back into place like a glued-on veneer. She raised the music box again, its metal gleaming. "Father, it's an interactive piece," she said, purposely misplacing emphasis very into it, her mic picking up the deliberate stretch. But Alexander ignored her camera angle. He turned to Ethan, and the room seemed to still itself around that look, like each note was an answer to a question he'd carried for decades. The scent of aged whiskey ebbing away, replaced by the dry aroma of old paper worn by sweat and tears. Ethan revisited the motif, quiet, fragile. 3 tentative notes tapped like raindrops on corrugated iron, tick, tick, tick. Then a pause, tender and breathless. He continued with 4 more notes slightly off classical tuning, like a lullaby performed, not delivered. Alexander's eyes shut for a moment. His shoulders, so often upright, slumped. That melody. He whispered more to himself. That melody. A guest whispered lightly, half-joke. Baby's lullaby. But silence swallowed the humor at the sight of the billionaire's face. Marco, the stage manager, reached for the fader to raise the background track, yet wavered. Though the piano levels stayed unchanged, the hall held its breath. Charlotte lowered the music box lid, closed, breaking the spell. "Game over. Thank you all." She attempted gracefully. Her father interrupted softly, but with gravity that made Bruno the guard flinch. "Give me the music box." Charlotte hesitated a heartbeat, then placed it in his hands. The black velvet box, a blur of scuffed edges and tarnished brass hinges, spun under his touch. He traced a tiny scratch along the lid, then popped it open, not for music. He was searching. Inside lay a cream-colored felt lining. Alexander gently folded the edge, revealing a hidden compartment, and inside it a slim, yellowed envelope with aging glue on its edges. The handwriting slanted and smooth. To Rainlight, 11:04 p.m. Room 312. Elena. Gasps rippled through the hall. Rainlight, Elena, is that Mrs. Sterling, room 312? Charlotte's face went dry. Mother, what is this? She said, reaching, but Alexander withdrew the envelope first. His eyes met Ethan's, sightless yet seeing, and they trembled. Ethan heard paper brush metal. Instinctively, he traced the edge of his chair and found the white cane that Bruno had kicked earlier. As he lifted it, the silver-gray ribbon wrapped around its handle brushed his fingers, faded, worn, marked with 312 in hand-scrawled ink. He understood. Lena, standing still, remembered asking him what that ribbon meant on a rainy afternoon on the sidewalk. A good luck charm, he'd said, and a reminder of where I began even if I can't see. Alexander opened the envelope. The faint skirk echoed. Inside lay a hospital ID-style plastic band, cracked, taped back together, and a second silver ribbon identical to the one on Ethan's cane. All motion stopped. Mendoza's scandalous guests were frozen in place. Claudio, a donor, usually always smiling, locked his hands in suspense. Marco whispered, "Keep filming." Alexander held the band. His thumb traced the faded imprint, Hope Maternity, 11:04 p.m. His voice caught, Elena wrote this letter that night. Charlotte Brittle snapped a smile plastered with panic. A personal letter from our mother. I'll read it later. Her father shut her down with calm, searing clarity. No. He began to read, voice steady, but filled with years of grief and remembrance, as though affirming a vow. To my Rainlight. If one day you hear the melody, Rainlight, know that one stormy night I placed you by the window of room 312 and sang it to you. I wrote it in 10 minutes between machines beeping and the smell of antiseptic to remember the rhythm of your first breath. I placed the bridge in the third beat, so whenever I hear it, I know that it is you. If you never hear it, that's okay. I know I loved you enough to record the beat of your heart at 11:04. I left this band and the ribbon 312 here. If one day someone opens this box, they'll know whom Rainlight was meant for. Elena. A breath passed through the room like a current of revelation. People held it in their lungs. Eyes shone. The DJ mid-drop yanked off his headphones, stunned. Charlotte's jaw quivered. She tried to speak. Mother was so young. Who knew? Her voice fractured. Ethan sat still as a boulder submerged in shifting waves. One hand lingered on the keys. He struck the exact bridge Elena described, a subtle beat in the third measure, followed by 3 gentle notes, pip, 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 like a heartbeat warm, alive. He didn't compose it. He remembered it. Alexander's voice cracked. How do you know that bridge? Ethan smiled faintly, as if piecing together a puzzle lost in darkness for decades. Because I heard it. Before I ever knew what light was, he said, quiet and clear. A nurse at Hope Maternity, Ruth, recorded it on tape, telling me, your mother sang it during the rain. Remember the silent beat in the third measure if you want to remember her. Marco echoed incredulous, a cassette tape. Ethan reached into his coarse jacket and pulled out a battered mini recorder. The label faded but readable, Rainlight. He pressed play. The tape hiss crackled through the hall's sound system. Marco quietly pulled up the AUX fader, and the voice of a young woman, tender and breathily tearful, emerged. Sleep now, my light. Rain taps on the rooftop. Your heartbeat. 3 beats. I marked them. On this note. No mention of Mother's name. Only melody and love anchored in that bridge. Charlotte tried to sabotage it. This can be fake. This is a gala, not a family reunion show, she protested. He just wants fame. Alexander didn't guard. He looked at the ribbon marked 312, then at the nurse band, then directly at Charlotte. Where did you get that band? Ethan lifted his cane. Ruth saved it for me, he said. She told me, you don't need eyes to remember. Wrap this ribbon so every step reminds you where you began. Someone gasped sharply. An older woman in the VIP row covered her mouth. Claudio looked stunned. Charlotte shook her head. Her voice splintered. This is ancient nonsense. Anyone. She grabbed the music box and pried open the false bottom to prove there was no trick inside. But the secret was already out. Her father placed Elena's note on the piano's lid beside the recorder, and her cane with the ribbon 312, 3 tokens forming a makeshift shrine. "Tonight is not your performance," he declared softly but clearly. "It's a public truth." Then direct-cutting Charlotte, "You have been mocking your own brother." The room's scent shifted: antiseptic rain-aged paper, newly unspooled tears. Charlotte stepped back. No one helped her. Her audience had vanished. Marco removed his headset fully. Bruno bowed his head. Even the champagne-clinking group had broken off. Silence held its ground. Ethan set the recorder aside and played not for applause, but for meaning. He performed Rainlight intro like soft raindrops, the body warm as lullaby that whispered bridge in the third beat. Then a coda reaching toward something brighter than any chandelier above. He didn't see their faces, but he felt them uncrumple, the hush of collective breath, the click of cameras lowering. As the final note faded, a real pattering began, the sound of rain tapping on the skylight above, affirming not just a performance, but a coming home. Charlotte looked at the music box, the object she used to mock. Now it was a mirror she couldn't face. She muttered into herself, "Mother, why?" Ethan turned to Alexander, not bowed, not angling for forgiveness. He just waited. Alexander stepped forward silently and placed his hand on the piano lid next to Ethan's hands, touching wood, not distance. It was a gesture of acceptance of truth found. "The show has ended," he declared, voice even in the stillness. "Now the truth is public. And with gravity like an anchor, tonight, Charlotte, you ridiculed your own brother." The final note of Rainlight faded, and droplets of real rain began to spatter against the glass ceiling. The crystal chandelier trembled and scattered thousands of sparkling light fragments like suspended raindrops caught between worlds. The MC's microphone lay exposed on the podium, its red light glowing unattended. The gala hall paused mid-frame, frozen, but for the crowd's collective breath, jagged, uneven, alive. Alexander rested his hand on the piano lid and surveyed the room. His voice, calm but unyielding, cut through the muted chaos. "Tonight, we are not just raising funds, we are bearing witness to the truth." The phrase "bearing witness" spread like a spark. Cameras flickered. The LED backdrop shifted from gradient pastels to stark black. In stark white letters had Rainlight 312. Charlotte forced a smile, scrambling for PR control. "Dad, this stream is peak engagement. Let me handle it." She searched for her camera eyes, darting for an escape route. From the VIP row, James Harrison, the family's lawyer, strode up, placing a file at the mic stand. Through the spotlight's cut line across his glasses, he declared, "We have urgently contacted Hope Maternity. The hospital archive has sent over a scan of the original night's shift log, and someone would like to speak with us." On cue, the LED screen lit up. A grainy video appeared, a modest, softly lit room, and then Ruth Halpern, RN, mid-60s, white-streaked hair pinned back, a faded name tag pinned to her blouse, and shelving lined with file folders behind her. Her voice shook, but carried, "I am Ruth. That night I was in room 312. I recorded the lullaby on tape for the baby because the mother said, in case I'm not here tomorrow." Her name was Elena. The wristband, the note, the third beat bridge, they're all accurate. A unified gasp rippled. Someone instinctively clapped once, then stilled as if frightened to break something sacred. Ruth nodded and the screen went black. Charlotte snatched the mic. "Ladies and gentlemen, this could be a staged Zoom clip. Let's remain." Alexander interrupted silence. The sound technician, having served the Sterlings for a decade, hesitated and then tapped the console. Charlotte's mic red light died. The real sound of raindrops on glass filled the room. No more words, just gestures. Charlotte pointed at Ethan via Bruno, but he could only stare at Ethan's cane wrapped in silver ribbon, then down at Ethan's hands resting quietly on the keys, and quietly lower his head in silent apology for the earlier disrespect. Alexander straightened. The hall's shifting lights refocused not on him but on the piano. His face was still, but his eyes burned. He spoke precise and unexamined by noise. "Charlotte Sterling." He turned fully to face his daughter. "Right here in front of everyone and the millions watching on her stream, you mocked your own brother." Silence descended, not emptiness, but the weight of thunder. People leaned forward as if wanting to listen, yet ready to flee. Conversations and cameras stopped. Laughter in the corner was swallowed whole. Charlotte opened her mouth, then laughed in broken strokes. "Brother, I thought this was a touching, interactive moment." Alexander's hand lifted Elena's letter like a relic. "Call it what you want. I call it sin." The microphone pickup caught the faint sting. Flashbulbs flicked. Sweat glistened at Charlotte's temples. She trawled the crowd for allies. None looked back except Lena, the bartender-turned-PR assistant, her eyes red, clutching Ethan's recorder as though it were a lifeline. She shook her head slowly, solemnly. Harrison tapped the mic. "Legally establishing paternity requires procedure, but morally musical ciphers and physical artifacts have illuminated a fractured truth. We intend to follow through." A silver-bearded philanthropist stood, "I donate for art, not to watch a privileged girl humiliate it." He motioned his tablemates to leave. Chairs scraped. A wave of aristocrats rose, stepping around the piano, letting space open for light. The DJ slid off his headphones. Marco gently stepped back, ducking his head in deference to Ethan. Behind the scenes, allies had changed sides. Charlotte stepped back 3 paces, bumping into her own, hosted by Charlotte Sterling banner, the sponsor logos mocking and accusing. Her handshake camera still streamed alive with viewer comments, "Turn it off. Apologize. You crossed the line." Some viewers posted lines from Rainlight as memorials her digital kingdom had turned. Alexander held the room. "This is not just about insulting a blind man. It's about a culture that through privilege turns pain into content, turns people into props." He swept his gaze across the audience. "This ends tonight." A single soft clap broke the silence from a server in the back. She held a tray awkwardly, but her applause seeded the room. Another joined, then more. The applause built not polite, but deliberate. It trembled across red carpet, crashed into glass, recoiled from the piano, and shook the suspended light fragments. Ethan remained seated, hands on keys like supportive shoulders. He lifted the stand microphone, poor quality overlooked, and spoke with gentle resolution. "I don't need pity. I need a space where music is respected." His words landed like a hand on a tender chest. Behind him, a line of freelance artists previously pushed aside raised golden glow sticks, light trembling like falling rain. Charlotte's lip trembled. "What do you want?" "Money, a name." This was supposed to be. Ethan tilted his head, listening for her hidden blade. He pressed record on the cassette machine. Click. The red light glowed. "I want a public apology, not just for me, but for every street artist treated like dust. And I want this song, Rainlight, to be enshrined in a foundation your corporation will establish right here, right now." The room leaned toward Alexander. He glanced at the artifacts, the note, the tape, the ribbon, and nodded firmly. "Agreed. The Sterling Foundation will immediately create the Elena Rainlight Fund. I commit $100 million as seed capital. Ethan, you are honorary co-director." He addressed Harrison. "Document this in tonight's board resolution on the spot." Gasps fluttered, some stunned by the minted sum, others by the way that sum was declared not in spreadsheets, but on a piano beside a man blind at long last, seen as human. Charlotte's laugh came out brittle. "Dad, you're going big. But let's not." No, Alexander cut in with austere calm. "This is your mother's legacy." He touched the letter, and the child she sang for. Charlotte grasped the music box. The lacquer cracked at the corner. She stared at Ethan not in bitterness, but with an intensity sharpened by bitter water. "If you weren't his father's son, you'd still be a street performer." Ethan offered a soft smile, not cruel, but luminous. "That is true, but if it weren't for my mother, your third beat bridge would have vanished with her. And if not for me, tonight would have been just another beautiful but empty gala." A round of applause struck like thunder. The LED screen flicked on live footage of Charlotte gloating with the music box backed by the cruel, mocking lines she'd spoken, aired side by side with Elena's lullaby. It hung in the air like a gauntlet. Harrison cleared his throat. "Transparency demands we declare the MC's segment was orchestrated to humiliate the performer. Any donations linked to Charlotte tonight will be redirected entirely to the Elena Rainlight Fund, unless the donors choose otherwise." A donor woman spoke. "Count me in. And add more." She looked at Charlotte with quiet clarity. Power without heart is meaningless. Two stagehands in unison removed the hosted by Charlotte sign. No one touched her. The sign slipped from her reality. She reeled. Her live stream abruptly went dark, internals triggered. Her digital platform flickered off mid-stream. Silence tightened. Then Alexander raised his relocated mic. We have long sacrificed truth for silence. Tonight, we restore the melody of that rainy night. He inhaled, eyes soft with memory. Ethan, you may not be ready to call me father. I haven't earned the right to call you son. But I will stand guard over your honor. Applause rose up again, not spontaneous but steadfast. Waitstaff sound engineers, philanthropists, artists, layers of humanity once fractured were now unified in that clap. Ethan rose. His left hand traced the piano's corner, worn but warm, familiar. He tapped his cane lightly, cock, 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 marking the third beat once more. He held the posture, gentle defiance. I was never given honor, he spoke. I reclaimed it. He turned to Charlotte, neither anger nor triumph. Just truth. Apologize. Here. Now. Not scripted, not publicist approved. Just human to human. Then you can begin again. Spotlight burned on her, truth stark and hot. She swallowed, her world narrowing. I'm sorry. No mic pickup. But the weight held. She looked at Ethan not in defiance, but newly seen. I was wrong. It was cruel. I'm sorry. To you. And to my mother. Tears glistened, not apology for show, but for loss discovered. Ethan nodded. Acceptance, not mercy recognition. Thank you. Alexander addressed the hall. Our final piece tonight, no script, no cue sheet, is The Rainlight Overture, a beginning from tonight forward. The house lights dimmed, leaving a warm halo around the piano. Rain clicked harder against glass nature's percussion. Marco, who once cued Humiliation, gently raised the piano fader by 3 dB. The DJ layered a soft string pad, minimal like a breath. Ethan sat and played. A major chord, steady, confident. Then he unfolded the Rainlight melody with brightness rooted in truth. The third beat break remained life's heartbeat anchoring the song, then arced into a soaring sixth chord. The audience exhaled in recognition, not applause for spectacle, but for soul restored. Faces glowed, eyes wet, nodding, connecting. This was no longer a story of context or pity. This was an act of dignity reclaimed on a stage bigger than any gala in the music that outlasts applause. As the coda blossomed, Alexander stood by the piano, silent, present. He looked upward at the rain-soaked glass as music and water met. Truth needs no spotlight, it shines itself. And above, rain applauded. The final melody drifted into the air like a thin wisp of smoke. The rain softened, shifting from pounding against the glass ceiling to a gentle, obedient patter. The gala lights softened from icy tones to a honey gold warmth, cascading over hair, shoulders, and eyes still red, yet now shining. On stage, Ethan rose and embraced the piano like an old friend. The applause wasn't triumphant, but deep, layered, silent gratitude for something finally put right. A steady cam glided across the crowd's faces, a crying young server smiling through tears. The silver-bearded benefactor nodding subtly, Marco tightly clasping his hands, exhaling. At the edge of the frame stood Charlotte, frozen against the backdrop, shoulders ruined. She turned away, then paused, her gaze drawn to the new words glowing white on the black LED screen. Elena Rainlight Fund for every child left in the storm. There was a pause, a collective inhalation resonating through the room as if they all shared a single breath. Alexander stepped forward, not to embrace, not perform, but simply placed his hand on the piano lid beside Ethan's. He spoke quietly enough for the microphone to catch. From tonight on, money is no longer the spotlight. The heart is. 1 week later. The scene opens with early morning cityscapes. Mist clings to rooftops. Sunlight glides along the river. Then the camera shifts to the Sterling Foundation's boardroom. Gone are model skyscrapers replaced with black and white photos of school choirs, community art classes, children's music clubs. On the boardroom wall, emergency meeting Elena Fund approval. Harrison reads the resolution voice, steady as a perfectly tuned string. Alexander signs it. Board members raise their hands in unison. In the back row, Ethan sits beside Lena, the former bar PR, now part of the fund's community team, his fingers gliding over a braille copy of the resolution. The room smells of new paper, marker, ink, glossy wood, all clean and resonant. A music box rests center stage, the same one belonging to Elena. Carefully restored, its black lacquer refreshed, but the old scratch preserved like a birthmark of time. Alexander opens it. The lullaby rain light pours out softly, just enough to fill the moment as the signatures are affixed. No words needed, this fund began with a song. 1 month later. Exterior daytime. At Central Station, glass-domed and luminous. The Street Music Day, hosted by the Elena Fund, is stripped of pomp, no red carpets, no over-the-top backdrops. Just small performance spaces arranged in a gentle curve. The air is scented with roasted coffee, baked goods, and lingering raindrops on stone. Children run barefoot across temporary grass. Adults sit quietly in folding chairs, smiling together. Ethan appears still in his white shirt, still holding his silver-ribboned cane. But this time he's not alone. Accompanying him are students, a trembling Vietnamese girl with a clarinet, a brown-skinned boy wrestling with a too-large guitar, and an autistic teen who smiles as his fingers rest on keys. Ethan cues them. 3, 2, 1 click. Rainlight begins in gentle choral form. The third beat drops like a shared heartbeat, softening tension, then lifting everyone with its steady support. The camera sweeps by. Patches of unity on each student's shirt is the Rainlight logo, a trio of white raindrops descending into a green circle. People donate not because they're prompted, but because they want to. An elderly woman folds a crumpled $5 bill into the box. A businessman removes his watch jokingly. Let's auction it. A girl records with her phone, captioning, "Music doesn't need eyes to find the way." In the crowd, Charlotte stands quietly at a distance, cap on mask lowered to her chin, camera held loosely. She's not streaming. She doesn't look into the lens. She photographs slowly, afraid to break the tender glow in the air. Her file name reads, "Rainlight No Cut, Pride Removed. Move." When the autistic teen nails 2 perfect notes and beams, Charlotte quietly smiles back, her sarcasm-sculpted face relearning softness. Her phone buzzes with a message from Alexander. "When you're free, come to the archive. I think it's time you read all your mother's letters." Charlotte looks up toward Ethan, who's guiding the little Vietnamese girl's hand to feel rhythm on his arm. Without words, she pockets her camera and walks along the station corridor, not in clinking jeweled heels, but soft-soled steps on wet brick. The journey toward redemption begins, 3 months later. Inside a cozy recording booth on the first floor of a public library. Children's artwork adorns the walls. On the table, a microphone, headphones, and a whiteboard inscribed with "Music is shelter when it rains." Ethan records his first album, Rainlight. No major label, no advertisements, released under the fund's own label with proceeds funding scholarships. The studio smells of warm timber, working electronics, and Lena's ginger tea brewing. In the booth, Alexander sits quietly, simply listening. When Ethan finishes Lullaby for Elena, Alexander places his hand on his son's shoulder, solid, warm. No words, no, this is an apology through touch. Your music. Alexander exhales, looking from Ethan's worn shoes to the studio lights suspended overhead, like a shrunken sky has taught me to speak less. Ethan smiles. Truth has its own rhythm. We just have to stop breaking it. The camera drifts over the music box, resting open on the desk, its gears oiled, original teeth preserved, not replaced. On its lid sits a small bow made from the silver ribbon of Ethan's cane, Lena's quiet creation crafted in a bridge mix. 6 months later. Gala night for the healing rain season. The glass hall is back, but transformed. No dress codes, no red carpet entrance. The podium is low at eye level, so no one needs to cran up or look down. Stage lights dimmed, house lights lifted, placing focus on faces, not effects. Charlotte steps onto the stage. No host title now, just volunteer. She speaks plainly, without technique or gloss. I once believed spotlight was power, but spotlights can blind. I dock-eyeing and lost the vision of my heart when I turned others' pain into clickbait. Tonight I ask all of us, especially those of us who've been in that place, please dim the lights. She bows her head. No applause erupts. Instead, a charged silence descends as though the room cradles her presence in stillness. Then, hand by hand, applause fills the hall, not for forgiveness, but for someone authentically finding her way back. Alexander announces the Human Dignity Event Protocol, banning manipulative setups, mandating participant consent for any footage, and allocating fixed portions of event budgets to independent artists and arts education. Money is the vehicle. Truth is the road. If your car's fancy but your route is wrong, you're still going away from where you need to be. That evening, Ethan isn't front and center. Instead, he sits among the children, letting them take turns pressing the 3 rain-beat notes. The microphone captures squeals of laughter, minor mistakes, bursts of, "oh joy." The lighting supports soft where kindness needs warmth, crisp where clarity demands offset. When the clock hits 9:09, 3 gentle digits like raindrops. Ethan stands, raising the mic to the crowd. "If you walk away tonight and forget my name, that's okay, but please don't forget Elena." That was the name of the song that helped a child find their way out of the storm. The camera pulls upward. The music box rests open on the piano, its golden tone reflecting into a thin rainbow arching across black polished wood. Outside, the rain no longer pounds it, showers lightly gliding over glass before flowing away like lullaby fingers. A child's tiny hand. Lena's child reaches for the keys, discovering the 3 rain notes. Ethan bends down, smiling, and plays a major 6th above. The room erupts not at cuteness, but connection. A silent motto floats in the light like a subtitle without words. Money can buy lights, but never vision. Power may command a room, but truth and compassion guide it to peace. The drone camera rises, capturing the wet glass ceiling from above. The city below is like a classical score, street lights as notes, traffic as bars, rooftops as rests. At its center, a glowing teardrop of light indicating where the light truly came from. Final image. Ethan steps onto the terrace and spreads his hand to catch the rain. A single drop lands on his palm, centered on his lifeline, shimmering like a tiny star. He looks up, not needing sight to see the horizon reflected within the drop. His white cane leans against the railing, the silver ribbon drifting in the wind. The music box still turns gently behind him, not loud, not worn, just caring. Narrator's voice softly closes. Music is shelter when it rains. Truth is the sun that follows. The lights gently fade. Only the faintest drip of rain remains. And then silence. What did you feel about the rainy night that changed an entire family? Do you believe that unconditional kindness can truly transform a life like Rainlight did? At which moment touched you the most? The public apology, the birth of the Elena Fund, or those 3 rain-beat notes played by the children? If you come across a street musician tonight, what might you do differently? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We read and respond to each one. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, so the algorithm brings it to more hearts. Share it with someone who needs hope tonight. And subscribe for more stories where truth and kindness always get the loudest voice.